The little girl stood outside the Grand Hotel, her bare feet cold against the marble steps, watching through the glass doors as children her age laughed and danced inside a golden ballroom filled with balloons, streamers, and a towering birthday cake that seemed to touch the ceiling. Her name was Maya, and today was her 7th birthday, but there would be no cake for her, no candles to blow out, no song sung in her honor. She pressed her small hand against the glass, leaving a smudge that a uniformed doorman would later wipe away with disgust, and whispered to herself the words that would change everything: "I had no cake on my birthday." Inside that very hotel, 28-year-old tech billionaire Nathan Cross sat in the penthouse suite, surrounded by financial advisors, lawyers, and assistants who spoke in rapid-fire sentences about stock prices, merger opportunities, and investment portfolios worth more money than most people would see in 100 lifetimes. He had built his fortune from nothing, they said, a genius who had created a revolutionary app before he turned 23, who had multiplied his wealth with shrewd investments and calculated risks. But Nathan felt nothing as he stared out at the city below, a sprawling landscape of lights and lives he no longer felt connected to. His own birthday had passed the week before without celebration, without meaning, just another day marked by meetings and money. He had everything the world said mattered, yet he felt emptier than he had ever felt as a child growing up in foster care, moving from home to home, never belonging anywhere. If you believe that kindness can change lives, that second chances matter, and that one moment of compassion can ripple out into the world in ways we cannot imagine, please take a moment to like this video, leave a comment sharing your thoughts, and subscribe to this channel. Your support helps us share stories that remind us of our shared humanity. The meeting dragged on, voices blending into meaningless noise, until Nathan stood abruptly and announced he needed air. His assistant protested, reminding him of the evening gala, the speeches he was expected to give, the influential people waiting to shake his hand and pitch their ideas, but Nathan waved it all away and walked out of the suite, taking the elevator down 43 floors, each second of descent feeling like a release from a prison he had built for himself. When the doors opened to the lobby, he walked past the marble columns, the crystal chandeliers, the well-dressed guests sipping champagne, and pushed through the revolving door into the cool evening air. That is when he saw her. Maya sat on the steps now, her thin dress doing little to protect her from the autumn chill, her dark hair tangled and unwashed, her eyes fixed on something in her hands. As Nathan approached, drawn by something he could not name, he saw that she held a single candle, the kind that comes in emergency kits, waxy and white and utterly ordinary. She was trying to light it with matches that were damp and useless, her small fingers fumbling with each attempt, her face tightening with frustration and grief that seemed far too heavy for someone so young. Nathan stopped a few feet away, and when she looked up at him, he saw in her eyes the same emptiness he had been running from his entire life. He asked her what she was doing, and Maya told him in a voice barely above a whisper that today was her birthday, that she was 7 years old, that her mother had promised her a cake before she got sick, before they lost their apartment, before everything fell apart. Her mother was in a shelter across the city now, too weak to work, struggling to keep them fed and together, and Maya had walked all this way because she had heard there was a party at this hotel, and she thought maybe if she stood outside and made a wish on a candle, it would be almost like having a real birthday. She had saved the candle for months, keeping it safe in her pocket through all the cold nights in shelters and under bridges, waiting for this one day when she could pretend that life was still full of sweetness and celebration and hope. Nathan felt something crack open inside his chest, a feeling he had kept locked away for years beneath layers of ambition and success and the belief that money was the only thing that could protect him from ever feeling powerless again. He sat down beside Maya on the cold steps, his expensive suit jacket spreading out beneath him, and he told her that he understood, that he too had spent birthdays alone and forgotten, that he knew what it felt like to watch other children receive what you could only dream of having. He asked if he could help her light the candle, and together they cupped their hands around the small flame as it finally caught, flickering brave and bright against the darkening sky. Maya closed her eyes and made a wish, and when she opened them, tears streamed down her cheeks, not from sadness but from the overwhelming relief of being seen, of having this one moment matter to someone. Nathan asked her where her mother was, and Maya explained about the shelter, about the waiting lists for housing, about the medical bills that kept piling up, about the fear that lived in her chest every day that she and her mother would be separated, sent to different places, lost to each other forever. She spoke with the matter-of-fact tone of a child who has learned too early that life is not fair, that wishes do not always come true, that sometimes you have to find your own small ways to survive. Without thinking about protocols or proper channels or the voice in his head that usually calculated every decision, Nathan made a choice. He pulled out his phone and made a series of calls, his tone leaving no room for argument or delay. He arranged for a car to take him and Maya to the shelter, for a medical team to meet them there, for a suite in the hotel to be prepared, for food and clothing and everything that had been missing from this child's life. His assistant protested, reminding him again of the gala, of his responsibilities, but Nathan told him that this was the first truly important thing he had done in years, and nothing else mattered right now. The shelter was a gray building that smelled of disinfectant and defeat, filled with people who had fallen through every crack in a system that was supposed to catch them. Maya led Nathan through hallways lined with sleeping mats and plastic bags full of belongings, past families huddled together for warmth and comfort, until they reached a corner where a woman sat with her back against the wall, her face gaunt but beautiful, her eyes lighting up when she saw her daughter. Maya's mother, whose name was Sarah, looked at Nathan with confusion and fear, as if expecting this stranger in his expensive clothes to be another person who would judge her, blame her, tell her she had failed. But Nathan knelt down so he was at her eye level, and he told her that he wanted to help, not because she needed to prove anything or perform gratitude, but because he had been where she was, because he knew what it meant to be alone and scared and desperate, because her daughter deserved to have a birthday cake and so much more. Sarah cried then, not delicate tears but great heaving sobs that shook her whole body, years of holding everything together finally breaking apart in the presence of unexpected kindness. Maya wrapped her arms around her mother, and Nathan sat with them in that corner of the shelter. Surrounded by the evidence of how badly the world could fail people who deserved better. Over the following hours and days and weeks, Nathan did what he had always done best, he solved problems. But this time, the problem was not abstract numbers on a screen or market opportunities to exploit. This was about Sarah's untreated illness, about the specialists who suddenly made time when Nathan made calls, about the medication that became affordable when he set up a medical fund, about the apartment that became available when Nathan bought the building. It was about Maya enrolling in a good school with supplies and uniforms and a lunch account that would never run empty, about therapy sessions to help both mother and daughter process the trauma of what they had survived, about stability and safety and the radical gift of knowing that tomorrow would be okay. Nathan did not announce his actions to the media or seek praise for his generosity. Instead, he began to see his wealth differently, not as a measure of his worth or a shield against his past, but as a tool that could be used to open doors that stayed locked for too many people. He established a foundation focused on preventing homelessness, on providing medical care for those who could not afford it, on creating pathways out of poverty that did not require luck or chance encounters with billionaires on hotel steps. He hired people who had lived through these struggles to run the programs, trusting their expertise and experience over the theories of those who had never known hunger or fear. But it was the small moments that changed Nathan most profoundly. It was attending Maya's school play and watching her shine on stage with confidence she had built from finally feeling secure. It was having dinner with Sarah and hearing her laugh for the first time since her life had fallen apart, the sound bright and startling and full of life returning. It was Maya's 8th birthday party, held in a community center Nathan had renovated, filled with children from the shelter and the neighborhood, everyone eating cake and playing games and being allowed to simply be children without the weight of adult worries crushing their joy. If this story has touched your heart, if you believe in the power of compassion to transform lives, please take a moment to like this video, share it with someone who needs to hear this message, and leave a comment below telling us about a time when kindness changed your life or the life of someone you love. On that 8th birthday, as Maya stood before her cake, a beautiful creation with pink frosting and rainbow sprinkles and 8 candles burning bright, Nathan watched from the side of the room, feeling more present and alive than he had in years. Maya looked at her mother, then at Nathan, then at all the people gathered to celebrate with her, and when she blew out the candles, Nathan knew that she was not wishing for anything anymore. She had everything she needed, she was safe, she was loved, she was home. Before we end, please take a moment to comment below, what would you do if you had the power to change one child's life today? Nathan realized that night, as he helped clean up after the party, stacking paper plates and tying garbage bags and laughing with volunteers who had become friends, that he had spent years chasing a feeling of fullness that money could never provide. The emptiness he had carried since childhood had not been filled by his first million, or his first 100 million, or any amount of success the world could measure. It had been filled by sitting on cold steps beside a little girl who had no cake on her birthday, by choosing to see her pain instead of walking past it, by remembering that he too had once been invisible and alone and desperate for someone to care. Maya's story and Nathan's story became intertwined in ways that neither could have predicted on that autumn evening when a wish flickered to life on a hotel step. They became a family of sorts, bound not by blood but by the deeper truth that we save each other when we choose to love courageously, to give generously, to remember that our own healing often comes through healing others. And whenever Nathan felt lost again in the pressures of wealth and expectations and the relentless pace of his work, he would remember a small voice saying I had no cake on my birthday, and he would remember why any of it mattered at all, why he had been given so much, and how he could use it to make sure that fewer children stood outside looking in, and more children got to blow out candles and make wishes that actually came true.